everyone. Welcome to the Good Doctor's continuing coverage of the Netflix limited series Unorthodox. I am Dr. Kristen.
I'm Dr. Erin.
And today we're talking about episode 2, which I believe is titled episode 2.
It's part 2.
In which we get kind of a continual pattern of what we got in the first episode, where we have both Este's current story in Berlin, Yankee's current story in Berlin, and then flashbacks to their life together. And this particular one was a lot around their wedding. And that was pretty much all the flashbacks was wedding preparation and then the wedding itself, which was full of questions.
So many rituals. I literally wrote that.
Various head coverings. I think I counted 3 different head coverings on Este at one point.
So
her modern story revolves a lot around the conservatory and potentially trying to get in, and the continual how does she be not Orthodox, and Yankee and Moishe are hot on her trail. That's kind of the summary of the episode.
Yeah, and I think they got into it a little bit in the first part, but I think this episode really was such a focus on the restricted gender roles or the very specified gender roles within ultra-Orthodox traditions. Because it starts with teaching her how to be a proper wife. And
that's the fact that she didn't know her own anatomy.
Yeah, and how they taught anatomy and how they talked about it, which is not dissimilar to a lot of faith traditions that teach that the only point is procreation, and thus minimize any actual anatomical knowledge so that you don't think about it. You're just making babies.
Yeah. And there's a lot of particular, just a lot of ancient traditions that have kind of kept their ancientness. There's a lot of stuff around blood in this particular, a lot of stuff around women's blood, a lot of stuff around menstruating blood and what that kind of means and looks like. So, it kind of ends up that most Orthodox couples only spend about half the month together in the same bed, and the rest of the time the woman is unclean. And so how do they navigate that? And then it's her first kind of ritualized baptism as well, the mitzvah, and which she will then go through every single time she menstruates if you're Orthodox, until you stop menstruating. And that is what cleanses you for your husband, essentially, for marital relations, because it's a spiritual act to have sex, because you are bringing more children into the world. It's kind of the very, very shorthand, very crassly summarized logic behind that.
Yeah, but I thought it was so, we talked about this offline, but I didn't really make the connection between the scene of her in the lake in the first part and the whole exploration of this cleansing ritual in the second part, until we talked about it for the video last week. When I watched the show, I didn't make that connection. So I thought that was such a important visual parallel to make. And for me, when I thought back on it, on that scene in the lake in the first part, you understand so much more after watching part 2, how important it was for her to do that. And to make that choice. And that was probably the first time, certainly in the year of her being married, or over a year of her being married, that she probably had the agency to choose how she bathed or how she cleansed herself. And to make the point of doing it in that lake at that time, it was retroactively powerful. I was it was powerful when I was watching it and I understood some of the symbolism, and then halfway through part 2 and we were talking about it and I was like, oh, that's amazing.
I loved the visual symbolism too, of the fact that that's pretty much the only time we see the actress's skin is in that. We don't see her in the changing room. She can't abide nakedness for a whole lot of reasons.
Yeah.
At all. And jeans are a step too far. I think we're led to believe she doesn't buy the jeans, and she continues to wear skirts and dresses. But
the fact that she even thought to try them on, I was like, whoa.
Yeah. But that was no, the starkness of this is the only time nudity is permitted.
Yeah, and we see herself working through the rules from her ultra-Orthodox life in this episode, right? In this,
she accidentally eats ham.
She accidentally eats the ham, which I thought was such a great visual representation of it. just that like you don't understand what's happening, and then and you kind of figure it out. She actually thought, of course, why wouldn't she think she was going to be sick?
Yeah.
Like her whole life she's been told she's never supposed to have that.
Yep.
And so yeah, I thought they did a really great job of juxtaposing the differences, and like both with her and with Yankee. And like one of the best scenes in this whole show is like, for some reason Moishe has a smartphone. He's like been given dispensation by the rabbi to have a smartphone, but nobody else does, and so they don't know how to use it. And Yankee like yelling at Moishe and yelling at the phone to like find his wife.
Yankee is like a precious bean. Like he
has no knowledge of the outside world. Zero.
And has no concept of why she would leave, to the point where like he seems to blame himself a little bit for it. Like, I didn't keep her safe, I didn't protect her. Like, it's this, and I could be reading it wrong. Maybe we find out in the next 2 episodes that he's a massive asshole. I have no idea. But right now he just seems like desperately wants to make sure that she's okay. Yeah. And that's, I don't know. I find him adorable.
He is adorable. Yeah. And I want to, and I think that's really interesting, because the point that you just made about why she left, because a lot of times the assumption is that you would leave like because of your partner.
Yeah.
And we don't yet know what the story is with her mother, but could be something like very traumatizing might have happened, or she is very traumatized by that life, which they show us when like, you know, Yankee and Moishe show up at her apartment. She's very, very scared. We learn like towards the end of the part that Este's dad is an alcoholic. So we're starting to put these pieces together, but like it might have been that her mother left because, you know, she couldn't abide being in a relationship with her husband for whatever reason. But I don't think that's what they want us to think about Este and Yankee.
No, I think they want us to think it was the system that drove her to leave. I mean, she says that pretty much to the group of friends that she's making, that, you know, why, and this is a good reminder for all of us who have never been raised in systems like this, where it's like literally your entire existence. Leaving is not a black and white issue. It's not a one day I believed all this and one day I didn't. It's a slow unraveling to threads that you'll keep for the rest of your life. And so the way that Este first articulates it is that God expected too much of her. And I've heard that kind of language from other people who leave movements like this, that it was the expectations of the deity that they just couldn't handle anymore, and the people enforcing those expectations, you know, become problematic for them. Right. It's the expectations they can't abide. So it's not that she left her grandmother. It's not that she left her husband. Right. That she left this thing that was oppressing her, this thing that was oppressing her, and didn't really want to leave the people behind, which I think we also get when she tried to call her grandma at the end. Yeah. And I think this part does a really good job of showing that the challenges that she faces, and that it's not, you know, you don't shed that life right away. Like the first thing she didn't do was like go out and buy a ham sandwich and eat it, you know, just to prove a point. Yeah. Like she's still a part of that world, even though she's trying to navigate this new world. Yeah. And I think she's like, you know, I think she is still a person of faith in this and trying to figure out, you know, she didn't say like, I don't believe in God. She said, God expected too much of me. Maybe she'll land there. Like, yeah. Maybe she won't. Yeah. And the fact that she said, now I need to find my own path, because she realized in this world, she had no agency to find her own path. And that's what we're kind of seeing her do now. And I love that they're giving her the time, like the show is giving her the time and the space to kind of figure it out. Because it's not like she left and was like, oh, I'm going to do exactly this.
no, she's floundering out there like any human person would be. And she's gonna flounder around for a little bit before she settles into whatever her path is. But all she knew was that she couldn't live that life anymore. She didn't, know, I think, anything else beyond that. And yeah, I don't get the sense that she blames her family for that, or even blames Yankee for that as much.
This feels like a very girl against system.
Yeah. And it broke me that she called her gran at the end, and she's just fundamentally like lonely and scared and in a place she doesn't know, with very lovely friends, but I don't know how she happened to find the like nicest friends in Berlin. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how her path develops. But I think they're handling it. I still think our point from part 1 stands, that they're handling it really respectfully.
I think so too. I mean, I didn't see the wedding scene as something voyeuristic or, it's very clearly different from a lot of things that a lot of us experience. This isn't what weddings look like for me theologically or emotionally. It certainly isn't what my wedding looked like. I, for instance, spoke during my vows, which I was not allowed to.
Yeah, you noticed something that I didn't notice when I watched it, was that she didn't speak at all during the ceremony. The only time she spoke was when her and Yankee had like the 7 minutes of heaven in in that room. But yeah, I didn't notice that she didn't speak at all, but you did.
Yeah. I mean, weddings always make me think of my wedding, so it's,
that's natural.
One of those. But yeah, I mean, it was still like, this is what they do, and there are patterns to this, and the singing, it signaled something, and they showed us, they didn't tell us, which also means they trust us as viewers to let them lead us in a way that just allows the story to tell itself.
Yeah.
Unlike, I don't know, having somebody sit down and explain orthodoxy to us in a talking head. Like, we just get to experience it along with Esty, and I think that's really, I continue to think it's a really good show.
Yeah, it is. It's an experiential show. There's very little exposition at all, which I just now, as I'm thinking back, like as you just said that, there is not the person, off to the side explaining things, like even, and so we're left to figure it out. But like even that scene in the taxi with Yankee and Moisha on the phone, like, it's just a natural conversation, and through the natural conversation the viewer figures out that in this ultra Orthodox tradition they are not allowed to have smartphones.
Yeah, and also then they get to the hotel and they have to pray. And
yeah.
They have to face a certain way, and their bodies do certain things, and they're wearing certain things and doing certain things, and we don't necessarily know what any of it means. All we know is that it's important.
Yeah. But it is a show not tell show, which I appreciate. And it takes a certain level of confidence, I think, to do that about a subject that a lot of people probably don't know a lot about. Because I think the inclination might be to lean more in towards exposition.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, we have this one shot. We have 4 hours to tell everybody something about this version of Hasidic Orthodoxy.
Yeah.
And their instinct was, no, we're going to tell Este's story.
Right.
Which is a different dynamic entirely, and I'm really grateful they chose the latter.
Yeah, it reminds me, I think, in a way that they did a good balance of showing on some of the earlier seasons of The Handmaid's Tale.
Correct.
And they have June's narrative, like her voiceover is the exposition where we get a lot of context, especially in the first season, but they also show a lot visually on that show and as a way of telling the story.
Yeah, and her exposition is a lot of her internal journey.
Yeah.
The world building of Gilead is still very visual.
It's very visual, yeah. And it's very effective that way, in a way that, like, having June explain the world of Gilead, she does in, like, snippets, a sentence here and there. But that's another show that, similarly to this, like, lets the viewer do a lot of the work, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and it's hard to do that. Like, I write original fiction, and it's so hard not to do a giant exposition dump. Just be like, here's my entire world. Let me build it all for you in 4 paragraphs.
Here's everything I want you to know.
Nobody likes that. I mean, like, it's just, yeah, it shows a lot of confidence in us as viewers. Like you said, a lot of confidence in yourself as storytellers.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I can't wait for episode 3.
I know. We'll see what happens with our dear Esty, and our dear Yankee.
And the friends.
I'm
now very invested in the friends.
I know, they're nice people. I read one review that was like their overtly diverse group of friends. But it is an international conservatory. Like, for me, I bought it. Like, if it's this world-renowned musical conservatory, you're going to get people from all over the world.
Yeah, I think, like, that's just what a lot of our stuff felt like in international stuff at Queen.
Yeah.
Like, it looked like the Rainbow Coalition all the time. So,
yeah.
Like, it didn't flag with me at all. But if you've never left the U.S., I can see how that wouldn't make sense to you.
Yeah.
Like, that's what, even beyond a world-renowned conservatory, that's what a lot of European schools look like.
Yeah, because that's what, like, all of the international stuff we did at Queen's looked like that.
Well, the Erasmus programs, like, that they transfer like, no, I didn't even think about that. Like, of course, I meet you guys making out at the table and somebody from 19 different countries. Like, yeah, that fits.
That's what, yeah, and it's so interesting to me that, like, yeah, I didn't think of it at all, and then I read it, and I was like, is that weird to other people? Because that's just, like, education in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah.
But I guess if you don't know education in Europe and you don't know that, you might look at it and see that it was a lot of, you might think it was tick boxing, but it's not. We can tell you, viewers, it is not. That is believable for what.
It might be a tick box exercise in casting,
yeah.
But it's also true that that's what their class would look like. So, like,
yeah.
We can hold both those things.
It can be both and. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the lectures that I went, like, one of the lecture series I went to with my colleagues, I think there was 7 native languages.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
It's very normal.
So, totally normal.
Yeah.
That's all I got for episode 2. Friendo, you got anything else?
No, I'm good. I'm excited to experience part 3 and to have a talk about it. So as ever, if you guys are watching along with us, please comment below what your thoughts are, what struck you, what didn't. And we will see you all for part 3.
Part 3. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.